Hello, and a warm welcome to everyone joining us for today's event, My Self Care, an evening for self care, hosted by the Women's Health 365 Collective. The Women's Health 365 Collective supports the exchange of women's health information and inspires our readers to learn about their health. My name's Shelby. I'll introduce myself in a little bit as one of the panelists. We're privileged to have an outstanding group of experts who are deeply committed to women's health and self care. Each panelist offers a unique perspective and wealth of knowledge. You'll get to meet them in a moment. We're so glad you could join us tonight and in the recording. To quote the artist we've always known as Prince, we are gathered together to get through this thing called life. As individuals living a full experience, life can take a toll on us, and it's up to us to reclaim our own energies. That's where self care comes in. In our hour together, you'll learn what self care really means and how to incorporate it into your busy life without fluff or nonsense. The chat is open and ready for your comments and questions. One of our collective members, Diane Williams, is managing the chat and will answer questions or forward them to our host for discussion on the panel during the Q&A session. There's Diane if you'd like to give a little wave. A reminder that we can't see you, so settle in, put your feet up, and get comfortable. I'd now like to turn over the microphone to our panel moderator, Jill Consor Beck.
I'd love to do a quick round of introductions of our panelists, and this way they can talk a little bit about themselves before we get into what self-care means to all of them. And hopefully we can hear from some of you in the chat what self-care means to you. So Christina, why don't you introduce yourself and tell everyone a quick blurb about yourself.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here. Hi, everyone. I'm Christina. I'm a content marketing professional, freelance health writer, and founder of Celiac Self-Care, which is a newsletter about navigating celiac disease and gluten-free living. I'm based in New York City, and when I'm not working, I love traveling the world in search of the best gluten-free eats.
Thank you. All right. How about you, Jess?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me on here. This is, I'm looking forward to this evening of everyone settling in and learning a little bit about self-care. So I'm Jess Mujica, and I am a menstrual cycle awareness advocate and also educator. I have a Substack that I write for and a podcast. They're both called Go With the Flow, Women's Cycle Awareness. I came into cycle awareness almost 6 years ago, and since then I've learned a lot about self-care through the cycle, so I'm excited to share that with you. I live in Asheville, North Carolina, and for fun, I love to get outside.
Awesome. Jane.
Hi, everyone. I am Jane Pilger. I really specialize in helping women understand binge eating, understand why they binge and how to stop. Something I am passionate about, something I experienced myself for over 25 years. And it's really just my passion to help other women go through and really understand in ways that I just wish I had. I have a podcast and a book, both by the same name, Binge Eating Breakthrough. And I live in Albuquerque, New Mexico with my amazing husband. And when I am not working or helping other people around binge eating, I am a competitive triathlete and marathoner. And my husband and I train and race together, and we love to travel all over the world to compete.
All right. Some more outdoorsy stuff, which is great. Shelby, how about yourself?
Hi, everybody. I'm Shelby Tuddy. Through my work on the Periprofessional, I educate and support women going through perimenopause and menopause. I write a free weekly article on my Substack website that shares all of my decades of health knowledge as a health information nerd. I'm a mom of twins, and I just celebrated my 25th wedding anniversary. Time goes by fast, and I live in the Chicago area.
All right. Well, I'll just do a quick intro for myself. As Shelby said, I'm Jill Consor Beck, and I'm the founder of Go Long, which is the name of my Substack. And then I also have a show on YouTube and on Substack called Going the Distance with Go Long. I help people follow through on what matters most through daily micro accountability, which means I basically text people for a living to keep them accountable. It's low friction, high touch, and it supports people who don't need more meetings in their life, just more momentum. I've been looking forward to this conversation since Shelby asked me to do this because self-care is deeply personal. And the way we define and practice it evolves with life. And I've been through enough to know where people get stuck. So let's hear from all of these panelists to find out how they define self-care. So with that, Shelby, how do you define self-care?
That's a great question, Jill. So I'll be honest, before perimenopause hit me like a ton of bricks, I thought self-care was beauty treatments, and I was really good at doing that. Then once perimenopause came about and taught me a whole new way of living, I realized that self-care was more than beauty treatments. And there's certainly a place for beauty treatments in self-care, but it's not the all-encompassing, this is what you need to do for self-care. Self-care incorporates so many other aspects, themes, and avenues that we're going to discuss tonight, what it covers. My biggest issue with self-care was the mental health piece, because I tend to be very self-critical. And once you get to perimenopause for myself, I realized that I couldn't carry on those beliefs and the things that I was doing with my mindset through the perimenopause experience, because it was making my symptoms a whole lot worse. So I needed to embrace self-care in a whole different way and look at it differently than I had ever done before.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I think perimenopause kind of just shakes everything up and kind of rocks people's world in a way that no one saw coming. The good news is that more people are talking about it. So, Christina, what about you? How do you look at self-care?
So, similarly to Shelby, before my celiac diagnosis, I thought of it as, okay, I'm going to get this facial or I'm going to drink a glass of wine at the end of the day. But now I really define self-care as any activity that you do that promotes, long-term mental, emotional, or physical well-being. So, a better example of what I view self-care as now would be, implementing a 5 or 10-minute meditation practice as part of my daily routine, rather than getting a manicure or getting that glass of wine at the end of the workday.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Jess, how about you? What do you think about self-care and how do you look at it?
Yeah, so I think that for the audience's purpose, self-care can be a vague concept. And I'm with Shelby and Christina that I also kind of looked at it as like this luxury extra that we do for ourselves, and it requires a lot of money and time and traveling and I don't know, just all this stuff that tends to sound a little selfish at the end of the day for me. And I'm not saying that any of those things are bad. I think those are all beautiful luxuries that we can have. For everyone out there though, I think maybe ask, at some point, maybe later on this evening, ask yourself, what does it look like when I don't give myself self-care? So sometimes we can start backwards and know when we know what it isn't. What does it look like when it isn't? And for me, that looks like ignoring my needs. So sometimes self-care is just remembering to drink water, doing a sort of a daily check-in with myself. And that kind of brings me to cycle awareness. Cycle awareness is a self-care tool that I've found and that women have within them for cycle phases, and each phase is going to require different needs. And so we can meet those needs with self-care through the cycle, and it might look different each week. And that's kind of the beauty of cycle awareness.
I love that you're saying you don't have to know exactly what it is. You can know what you're not doing, like how you feel when you don't do something. And I think that there's so much in society today that talks about you have to know, you must know what the end goal is, as opposed to thinking about, well, I know that when I don't do this, I'm not feeling as good about myself or about my ability to get things done.
Right.
And
And sometimes we need to sit with that and just sort of reflect on that. I think just even taking that time at the end of the evening, maybe we haven't even asked ourselves that question. And I know when I asked myself, what is it that I need? I would come up blank a lot. And it was actually almost frustrating, like, oh, if I had 2 hours, what would I do for myself? And I'm just like, oh, I don't know. You know.
I find that a lot, honestly, with like my coaching, in that I find someone that I'll get them to get rid of something and decommit, and they immediately want to put something else in there. And I'm like, wait,
Yes.
let's do addition by subtraction here, in that you can get more done by taking on less. And
Absolutely.
so now, Jane, how do you define self-care? I mean, you are a high-level athlete, and that's part of your lifestyle in terms of what you and your husband do. So how do you take care of self-care other than the obvious ice bath stuff that you do after a long run?
Yeah, what I really like to think about self-care, a lot of people are familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? I like to think about self-care in a similar way, and that there's like levels and layers of self-care. And so if we can think about layers and kind of levels of self-care, just like if we think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it kind of follows along with that. So for me, the base of it, like the foundational thing that absolutely has to be there, really is it's safety. And so safety includes a lot of different things. It literally is sleep, hydration, nourishment, those things. It's like we have to have those basic human needs. We have to take care of those, or our foundation really is going to crumble. And we've all felt that, and we've all experienced that. But I think sometimes we don't even realize, yeah, that just those basics are self-care. But it's not just that. Then the next piece of that foundation of safety really is nervous system, and what just knowledge, understanding your nervous system. What can you do to be aware of the state of your nervous system, to bring in some signals of safety to your nervous system? They're little tiny things that we can do for ourselves that can be so powerful and so impactful, way more than, a spa treatment or a massage or whatever that is. And those things are nice, but those things are like higher up on the levels. So we have kind of safety as that first level. And then for me, the next level up would be like self-compassionate structure. So a lot of people, especially with binge eating, you have people who are very much black and white, all or nothing thinkers. I'm either eating perfectly, or I am off the rails and I'm eating all of the things. And so structure sometimes can be like, ooh, I don't want structure. I don't want rules. Or we have so many rules that as soon as we break one, then we're, kind of off to the races. So I really like to think of like supportive structure, where there's rituals, there's rhythms, there are things that we do that our body knows. Okay, I generally get fed around these times. I generally go to sleep around these times. I generally get about this much sleep. Those types of supportive structures are really powerful, but we have to bring in that self-compassion piece, where when we do eat more than we thought we might, or we do stay up way too late because that Netflix, we're like, yes, next episode, how we kind of respond to ourselves. We could kind of like not have a layer where we do stay up too late, or we do eat more food than feels comfortable in our body. But we can bring self-care in by being self-compassionate with ourselves when that happens. So then for me, the next layer is like emotional. It's like emotional nourishment. It's really being attuned to your own emotions, and then checking in with your needs. What are the needs that I have? What is unmet? Like really being kind of attuned there. Then the next level is what I think most people think about as self-care. So we're already like 4 levels up. And this is where you have creative expression, joy. Maybe it's dancing. Maybe we are going to spa treatments, or we're going out with our girlfriends, or whatever. We're going out in nature, or doing the hike, or the whatever it is. And then the last part is just like deep, meaningful, deep relationships, purposeful work, like that type of thing, where like you're not actually doing or checking anything off. Like you're really just being. So it's kind of like I just love to look at it in that way of like the different layers, but we have to start with that foundation.
Yeah. And I agree about the nervous system. I think it's one of those things that if I can go back in time and talk to my 25-year-old self, that like how you should be listening to your nervous system. And
Yeah.
there's a reason why, it's so
Yes.
attuned to like your brain, and it, basically runs the ship.
Yeah.
And that's only something that I've learned really since going through perimenopause, like full throttle. So I appreciate you bringing that up. Now, a lot of times you go on these, webinars and symposiums and forums, and everything is like pie in the sky and very theoretical, like, oh, I'm going to meditate every day or whatever it is. But I'd love to understand how each of you incorporates these self-care techniques that you talk about into your day-to-day living. Because as Shelby said at the open, this isn't about gimmicks. This is not about tricks. It's just like, hey, let's keep it real. And what can everyone do today? So Shelby, why don't you talk a little bit about how you try and do the best you can, because no one's perfect, to incorporate your self-care while you're raising twins?
Yeah. Well, that was the problem, was that I was so focused on them. And right now they're 19, they're about to turn 20. So they're older and things have gotten easier. But I was so hyper focused on them, I ignored myself. And I thought because I ate well and I exercised, that that's all I needed to do. I didn't give myself breaks. I didn't give myself rests. I didn't leave my kids with other people. I was with them all the time. If they needed me, I wanted to be 110% available to them. I didn't take vacations with my husband. I didn't go to, shopping in the evening. I really focused on them. And there's a number of reasons for that, but what ended up happening was when I got to perimenopause, it was like, I can no longer do that. I need to rest. I need to sleep. I need to be able to focus. One of the things that was so hard for me as a parent was the constant distractions. And what that was doing to my brain was that it was shortening my attention span, it was shortening my focus, and it was shortening my concentration. And one of the things that I absolutely love to do is read. I am a huge reader. I go to bookstores. I could spend hours there, but I couldn't even read a page. I would end up having to reread it multiple times in order for things to sink in. And if you're of the age of perimenopause and have gone through it, brain fog is one of the symptoms. So here I was already distracted with a low concentration, and then perimenopause brain fog hit. And there were a lot of times where it was like, I thought I was developing dementia because it had gotten so bad. So one of the areas, because I already had the eating and I already had the exercise under good control, I really had to work on my mindset and my self-care towards how I thought about myself, and realize that I didn't need to be perfect all the time. One of the things that perimenopause did was it stole my laughter. I was so burnt out by the time, and I started perimenopause around 48, 49. We never really know when we started, but that was when some weird things were starting. And once I got deeper into it, I one day I just realized, like, when was the last time you laughed? And life had felt so heavy because I had burnt myself out. I was working, and I not only do I have multiples, but I also always had multiple jobs. I was always doing multiple things, by choice, because I like to keep busy. And that was also part of the problem. So I had to restructure things in my brain as far as, okay, it's okay to let some things go. It's okay not to put so much pressure on myself. It's okay to take the time to try and rebuild my concentration, which took some work, my memorization. Some of the other things, I brought laughter back into my life. I started watching stand-up comedy and going out and doing things that I wasn't allowing myself to do before. Particularly, the big thing is, and Jane said, nervous system. It was connecting with my nervous system and realizing that there were behaviors that I was doing that was putting me into a state of fight or flight. And when you're in a state of fight or flight, you're releasing all of those stress chemicals. And those stress chemicals we've known for decades. They're not good for us. We need to take moments, and literally moments. That's all it takes to bring down your whole system. by staring out the window, looking at nature, doing something that you enjoy. And a lot of women complain during perimenopause that they develop anhedonia, which is a lack of interest in things. You just don't feel like you want to do anything anymore. And the things that interested you no longer interested you. One of the other things that I did was I looked to my childhood to see what brought me joy as a child. And one of those things was ballet. So I enrolled in an adult ballet class, and I haven't done ballet. And, I did it for 13 years as a kid, but I haven't done it since then. And so that brought me back a little bit of joy, a little bit at a time. I didn't make these changes, overnight. It took years of trying to realize that there were some self-care things that I needed to work on. And we'll talk a little bit about the benefits in a little bit, but those are the things practically that I did.
I think that one of the things that you mentioned is just that it takes time to do these habit changes. And that is something that I see a lot with people who come to me because they're like, I want to go to the gym 5 days a week. I want to do this. And, they want to go all in, and I don't want to take away their enthusiasm. But the thing is that as someone who has been through this, when you're making change, it's hard to do it when you're trying to change everything at once and go from 0 to 100 miles an hour. It rarely sticks. There's a reason why most New Year's resolutions drop on January 19th. And, because that's when people's will starts to falter because they're running at this unsustainable pace and they can't keep up with it. It would be like running a marathon at a 5K pace. And that doesn't work out well. Trust me. I used to do distance running too. My days are over though. But the thing is that it's really making very small incremental changes that help you make the change you want to make on a sustainable level, right? And I think that when I think about self-care for myself and how I've implemented it, it's trying to think about all right, did I move? Instead of going to the gym every day, thinking about, did I move today? How much did I move today? And that could be, did I go out for a 15-minute walk? Was I able to take one of my meetings today outside and go for a 15-minute walk? So it's more of, I want people to think about is there a way when you feel like you have, if you're in full-on parenting, like Shelby was just talking about, can you carve out 10 to 15 minutes to go outside and just go for a walk, right? I also want to encourage people, if they have questions, throw them in the chat because we're going to be answering questions in a bit. So Christina, let's talk about, how do you incorporate self-care in your day-to-day life?
So, when I was first diagnosed with celiac disease, it was March 2020. I'm telling you, it was the first or second week of the COVID shutdown. My doctor called me with the test results and said, you have celiac disease, go gluten-free, good luck. I had no idea what that meant. I, of course, couldn't go out, couldn't meet people in person. So I went on Facebook and I joined all these online support groups. And the sentiment in these groups was overwhelmingly negative. So every comment in these groups was, my life is over. I can't go to restaurants. I can't travel. And so my mind really went to this very dark place that I wasn't going to be able to have a fun and fulfilling life anymore with this condition because I wouldn't be able to eat any of the food. And so I really came to the point where I had to go on a social media break and limit my time on social media. And that has been a huge form of self-care for me. Once COVID restrictions started easing up and I was able to meet people in person again, the first thing I did was join a celiac group in New York City. And I've made a few good friends that way. And I'm also someone who in the past, tended to, bottle up my emotions and be like, I'm this independent person. I can take care of myself. I don't need any help from anyone else. But dealing with this chronic condition, I realized that I really did need support from others. So leaning on those friends that I've made in the celiac community, if, a situation comes up where, let's say, there's a work lunch and I can't eat anything and, I have to vent to someone, I have those people now that I can text who have the same condition as me, who've gone through it, that I can lean on for support. That's been very helpful for me. And those are also people, there are certain activities that I can't participate in anymore. For example, if a friend is hosting a food crawl or doing a potluck, those are things that I can't really do safely. So having that group in my community that I actually can go out and enjoy and celebrate gluten-free food with has made a huge improvement in my life. And so I consider, having the celiac friends as being a form of self-care for me. I really like what Jane talked about as just the foundation. And so, prioritizing nutrition, just something as simple as taking my vitamins every day, because I did have nutritional deficiencies when I was first diagnosed. Something as simple as, scheduling the yearly appointment with my GI doctor and getting my blood work for celiac to make sure that that's under control. I consider that a form of self-care. I really like what you said, Jill, about movement. I don't beat myself up if I don't go to the gym every day. Even if I just get a 10-minute walk outside and walk around the block, I consider that to be a success. And yeah, and so those are some of the ways that I practice self-care. I will say the other thing too is that one of the biggest stresses in my life has been cooking. My lifestyle has had to change a lot. So I don't have the opportunity to go out to eat and order takeout as much, just because there just aren't that many safe, celiac safe options out there. So going from someone who used to go out to restaurants multiple times a week to now being someone who cooks almost every single day. Again, on social media, a lot of people who post on social media, they're posting the best of their life, right? Like they're showing you these beautiful meals that they're creating, and that's totally not me. Like I will buy, microwavable rice. Like I am not going to sit there in the kitchen and spend hours doing something that causes me stress. So I just take the easy way out when it comes to cooking. For me, like as long as I'm eating a meal that, tastes good and, is sort of healthy-ish, like I don't care how I get there, I'm going to buy the frozen vegetables that are already chopped up and, the rice that's in a bag that I can throw in the microwave. And that makes my life a lot easier. So that's another form of self-care.
I would post the pictures of food that you cook and just being like, hey, I'm keeping it real. Like, and I bet you would get so much engagement on that in terms, especially in your celiac groups, and be like, yeah, you're not getting, you're not going to get like the perfectly, plates with the color coordinated vegetables and everything else. This is my rice and this is these are my frozen
plates,
vegetables.
like, yeah.
This is this. And I bet you'd get a ton of engagement because that's the reality for most people. So, okay. Thank you for sharing that, Christina. I think it's great that you're just like, yeah, I'm doing rice in a bag. Cool. So Jess, what about you? How do you do it on a day-to-day basis?
So
Self-care.
Yeah, right. Self-care. I got it. Almost 6 years ago when I turned 40, we're all talking about perimenopause a little bit, but that kind of one of the biggest symptoms for me when I hit 40 was that my endometriosis got extremely worse. And so the whole menstrual week window for me was nothing short of agony. The pain would send me somewhere around day 26 all the way, and then the cycles would go to like 34, 35 days sometimes. So I would be in pain literally for a week, in and out. But it was really hard to just do daily functions during that time. And I just pushed. That's how when we talk about the burnout that happens, so many women are in my position or were the position I was in, and they're just pushing through. And so we're using stimulants or alcohol to sleep, and so it's just kind of you're on this yo-yoing of just trying to get yourself to feel somehow balanced and productive and move on through your day. Through cycle awareness, I found that each phase requires different things from us. And our hormones are dictating what our needs are, which is really interesting to watch that, what as estrogen climbs, we start to get more energy. And so after I would come out of that menstrual cycle of that 1 week, I would start to feel okay again. And then it was kind of like, well, now what do I do? And how do I do this? And, through what I've researched, each week is so so intricate in what the design that's already in us for self-care. So for that week after menstruation, which would be your second week, like actually pushing ourselves is self-care, like exercising, because if we don't, we might feel angst or mental clutter because we've been sitting or resting, hopefully, in that winter, I call it the winter phase, which is the menstrual phase. And so when we come out of that, it's like, well, how do I come out of that? And so then every day I was tracking my cycle and kind of just checking in on these different levels like Jane was talking about. But for me, it was these levels of how the hormones shift me physically, mentally, emotionally, socially. And so, like, and looking at all of those and seeing that I actually have patterns and that the cycle is creating these patterns. And if I would actually like listen to these patterns, they're telling me something. And it was amazing what I found. So yeah, kind of pushing yourself in that second week and being active. And so there are times for doing and helping everyone else. And then there's times where we have to kind of bring it in and check in and say, okay, things have switched and now my hormone levels are dictating something else. My need has changed. And so now I might need more downtime. What was happening was I would go through the ovulation phase, which is the week after, feeling wonderful and great and ready to be with everyone and very social. It's a very social time. And then I would absolutely crash, but not want to show anyone that I'd crashed. So I would just kind of keep pushing through, just keep doing, let's keep summer going all year long. And that's kind of what the society is pushing women to do, is to live in this ovulatory summer phase that is motherly and fun and has all this energy and is a Wonder Woman mom. And it's just not realistic. And we can burn out like Shelby did. And I did too. And that burnout is rough. When you when you crash hard. And then it's like, oh, now I'm reactive instead of proactively. I could already look at my schedule in my month and go, oh, around day 21, when everything starts to shift, I could take that day for myself instead of running out of the house, like screaming at everyone on my way out. And then my husband wondering if I'm coming back, like, oops. And then I get down the road. I don't know where I'm supposed to go. I don't know how to take care of myself when I get out there. And then I'm just crying in the car. This happened to me when my son was a toddler. That happened often because I was not proactive at looking at these times where I could just take this little chunk for myself and already have it planned out and have something beautiful to do for myself. Like go to a coffee shop and write, or the library, or go for a walk. Like you're saying, like walk's so important. And exercise is as well. And so that's kind of what I've seen, just learning to track every day, know what my levels are for all of my different energies, and then kind of curtail that so that I am meeting the needs as they come up, and they're shifting. And my family's been extremely supportive. My son and my husband, they both understand cycle awareness. They're both 100% behind. And when I don't feel like cooking, like he already knows that day's coming, like where I can't even make a decision for what we're going to eat. I'm like, I don't even care about food. I hope someone else cares about food to tell me what we're going to have. And then they step in, and that's the thing, is like when we step back, if you have people in your life, they will step in. And that's where Christina is talking about using that community. If you have a community, and most people do, and if you don't, look for them, like ask for that it will come.
I think there are so many things, Jess, that you talked about, but what I think is really important to talk about is around women not talking about their periods, because they're just like, there's like shame and embarrassment and everything else. And they think like, oh, this must be normal, like the pain. Right. And, it's like, how do you know if your pain is worse than someone else's? Right. And so to me, I think it's good that there are more like OBGYNs, especially on Substack, who are out there like publicizing like, this is not normal when you're experiencing this a week after your period and blah, 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 blah. Right. And I think that the more the people verbalize what their experience is, the more that other people don't feel like they're alone. Even though like I don't have endometriosis, but it's more of like, oh, other people have things that don't seem normal in terms of like, oh, the perfect cycle every 28 days and blah, 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 blah. And the important thing is to keep talking about it. And obviously, with your Substack, you're doing that. And I think it's important for anyone who is listening now or going to be listening to the recording is that ask questions, find out if what you're experiencing is normal. Go to your doctor and go in with questions. Be prepared and say like, hey, is this normal? There's no stupid questions out there. That's what your doctor is there for. But
unfortunately, a lot of doctors don't give you very good advice once you walk in there. There are some, but there are many who don't. And this is again where I think when you track your cycle and you start to line them up with like, oh, this is what is naturally happening, and you're not feeling that way. For instance, in what I call the spring or the follicular phase, I had some just real anxiety and anger and emotional kind of frustration that would come up. And I'm like, wait, this isn't a hallmark of this week. And I went to see an acupuncturist and realized that there was some liver issue going on. And the liver is interesting when it comes to Chinese medicine, that the liver can indicate like anger, emotions are stored in the liver. And just by going and doing that, it cleared it up. And, again, yes, go see your doctor, go talk to them, but also tracking, you're going to start to see what your patterns are, and you will start to know yourself better than you've ever known yourself. And again, talking with other people, then you can say, this isn't, is something that's healthy going on with me. Because I was clued in many times just through tracking and looking at those patterns.
Absolutely. Jane, what about you? How do you incorporate self-care into your day-to-day?
So I want to share one of my favorite tools that is so easy. You can do it anywhere at any time. And if you use this tool on a regular basis, you will get to know what I love. Jess is talking about getting to know yourself, getting to know your cycle. The thing I really love to talk about is getting to know your nervous system, getting to know the different states in your nervous system. And we don't even have to get into the complicated anything about it. We can just say, as far as the states of your nervous system, am I grounded? Am I like to call it home base, that place where I'm at home in myself. So am I there or am I above? If I'm above, I'm either, that's generally fight or flight. So I'm either angry, I'm frustrated, or maybe I'm anxious, I'm worried, I'm overwhelmed. My brain is kind of like spinning, whatever it is. Like there's a whole lot of energy up there. Or am I below? And below is like, I can't even get out of bed. I can't get off the couch. I have 5 million things to do on my list, but I can't even get myself to do any one of them. So really, that's all we have to know. Am I kind of in my home base? Am I above? Am I below? So there's your basic nervous system lesson. Okay. Now here comes the tool. The tool is what I call 3 powerful questions. So the questions are, what do I notice? What do I need? What's next? So what do I notice? It's you just tune into your body. What do I notice in there? What do I notice in terms of physical sensations? What state is my nervous system in? Am I in home base? Am I above? Am I below? Maybe I notice my brain is just like going. Whatever it is, what do I notice? That is giving you a clue of where you are in your nervous system. So question number 2, what do I need? Jess actually mentioned this earlier. That one thing that is very common, if you are not used to asking yourself the question, what do I need? You may get crickets. And just know that's okay. It's because you are not used to asking yourself the question. If you keep asking, you'll start to get little answers. And it may just be, I need some water. I need to get up and move from this chair. I've been sitting here for a really long time. I need to go take a walk because there is so much energy coursing through my veins right now. Just ask the question, what do I need? And then the third question is, what's next? So now that you've checked in and you see what you've noticed, now that you've identified what you need, even if I haven't, even if it's like, I don't know what I need, but I do notice this, then the question becomes, what's next? So what that does is that now puts you in the driver's seat. You get to choose what you're doing next based on what you've seen, what you've noticed, and what you've identified that you need. So if you can tune in, ask those 3 powerful questions often. You could ask them once an hour. Sometimes I will have clients set an alarm on their phone with just the 3 questions. Sticky notes are amazing. You could have a sticky note with the 3 questions, anything to just kind of remind you to ask them. And you can tune in anytime, anywhere, anything's going on. It's such a beautiful way to start tuning into yourself instead of all of the other external things, or even the things that are happening kind of like up in our head. It's a beautiful way to start checking in with your body and making that connection with your nervous system. And as you ask the question, what do I need? You'll start to figure out the little things that you can do. And when you make that choice, you tune in, you discover what you need, and you make the choice to do something to honor whatever that need is in any little amount. It's beautiful self-care. And that will help you. You start doing this, we're on the bottom, we're on that foundational level. It will allow you to get to the places where we can start having fun and laughter and going to the treatments and all of the other things. But 3 powerful questions. What do I notice? What do I need? What's next?
That's awesome. And I mean, I'm a big fan of the daily check-ins for whatever it is that you're doing. And, because I think that when you do that, it's a good way to kind of see where you're at. So I recently had my hip replaced a few months ago. And, there's a lot of up and downs when you're going through a recovery like that. And I just said, all right, here, how am I going to measure how I'm doing? And literally it was like, how am I putting on my sock? How much pain am I experiencing when I'm putting on my sock? And then it was like putting on my pants.
Yes.
Right. And it was just like an easy way for me to just be like, okay, I have less pain than I did yesterday. So I'm actually doing okay. I'm doing better than I think I'm doing.
Yes.
Because of course, as an active person, I'm not doing as well as I'd like to be doing.
Yes.
Right. But just doing that simple thing of evaluating like, okay, is it easier to put on my sock today than it was yesterday? Most days the answer was yes. So I love the concept of just daily check-ins.
Yeah.
Right. Because I think that helps you, whether it's tracking like what Jess said, or it's, doing the nervous system check-in, or talking about what Christina's doing in terms of like her food and being like, this is what I'm doing. I'm doing the rice in the bag and I'm good with that. And, what Shelby's talking about in terms of not neglecting herself now, right? Because she did that for so many years. And I think there's good daily ways to be like, hey, did I take care of myself today? So, all right. We're going to do lightning round with like the last question we're going to do here, because I know we have at least one question that we got from registration. So, what are some of the biggest benefits that you've seen from your own self-care routines? And I know we've kind of covered some of them already, so we'll just do lightning round version here since it's 5:45 Pacific time. Shelby.
All right. Well, the biggest thing that I've noticed, 2 big things, is one is I've learned through these little self-care things that I am building trust with my body. So when my body starts shouting that it needs something like going to the bathroom, which I would put off if, one of my kids is like, Ma, I need you. Be like, I'll go to the bathroom in a minute. So because I did that so many times, you can cause problems for yourself. So now it's like, oh, if I recognize, okay, I need to go to the bathroom, I stop what I'm doing and I take care of that. And that builds trust within my body. The other thing that I've noticed is that my inside world now reflects my outside world. So if you were to meet with me, you'd see a very happy person, a calm person, an easy to talk to person, but that's not what was going on internally. Internally, I was living up into my head all the time. It was like I was just a talking head. I was not even connected to a body. And I felt it didn't make me feel good because what I was projecting out to the world was not how I felt inside. I felt very tense. I felt very tight. My brain would be flying a mile a minute, thinking of things, trying to predict things that I couldn't control. But now I feel much happier as a person, and I feel much more aligned between what I feel inside and what I'm projecting outside, which is a world of difference from where I was.
Great. Yeah. Awesome. All right, Christina, how about you?
I would say that, one big benefit is that I've learned that it's okay to ask for help and it's okay to get support from other people. What I had talked about leaning on my community, that's made such a big improvement in my life. And, even just going to therapy, that's something that I started earlier this year. That's helped a lot with my health anxiety. I'm learning different strategies that I can implement. So just knowing that it's okay to ask for help. You don't have to do everything alone. And self-care isn't necessarily just like what you're doing. It's, what other people can help you do as well.
Yeah, I love that asking for help thing, particularly, I'm pro therapy as well. And I think the thing is that expecting to be, for one person to be all of these things to you is a lot. So, I think you said you're married, but you have your community, you have your friends, you have other family, you have your therapist, and like they all play different roles and can give you different perspectives to help you feel your best. And they all bring something different to the table to help you get to where you want to be. Jess, how about you?
Gosh, through my self-care practice using cycle awareness, I mean, the benefits are just, it lists long. But the key ones are what Jane was talking about as well, which is the asking myself, what do I need? And doing those on very specific days, even if I've been trucking along and everything's been great, there are absolute times that I know that I have to do that practice more deeply. And then another great thing, is putting that on the calendar for myself, downtime. When I give myself permission to have downtime and actually make myself do it, it's almost like going to the gym. I did it today. Took myself, the way I say it is I took myself to the woods. So I took myself to the woods today alone. And I think learning to do things alone, and allowing myself to decompress, has been a really good practice for my nervous system. And then also through just the whole practice of cycle awareness, which you can find on the website and everything about how I do all of that. I have been, I guess, endometriosis remission, I don't know, but pain-free for over 14 months now. And that's decades. We're talking decades of pain. And so it was slow. It is incremental. You have to make these really small changes, and not just try to do everything, but just what can I do today? What is a small thing I can do? Even if it's just that question of what is it that I need?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think that that's really important is just like doing that check. So Jane, how about you? What are some of the biggest benefits you've experienced from your self-care routines?
I feel like my self-care routine and really looking at all of this on kind of like that layer hierarchical level is really allowed me to be human. I for so long, and I've heard a lot of themes of this from several of us as we've shared, right? It's like just push, go, expect yourself to do all of the things and kind of, totally ignore whatever your body is trying to tell you and just be so focused on either going or doing or achieving or what other people think about you that I literally was not allowing myself to be human. And it's so much of there were many reasons, but so much of the reason that I was struggling with binge eating is because I literally would not stop. The only time I ever stopped or slowed down was after a binge. And it was almost like my body was like, hey, if you are not going to slow down, I will force you to slow down, because after a binge, I would just sit there. But it was literally the only time I stopped. And I didn't allow myself to make mistakes or to so many things I didn't allow. And when I would be human and make a mistake or not be able to do something or whatever it was, the way that I would respond to myself internally was so harsh and it was so critical that then again, of course, I would turn to the food to kind of cut myself off from all of that. And so just giving myself permission to be human has been, I think, the one of the most powerful impacts and results of truly tuning in and caring for every single part of myself, not just the parts that I liked or that I wanted to show to the rest of the world.
Yeah, that negative voice, it's so pervasive, especially with women. And I try and tell people with the texting, it's like, I'm the positive voice in your head. I'm the one who is like texting you the positive voice that you can do these things. And I think it's really it's just so challenging to overcome that negative voice. That's like kind of whether it's imposter syndrome or just the stress. Jess, you said something interesting around scheduling the downtime, and literally that's something that on Thursdays, that's like the text that goes out to everybody, like literally in a different format. It goes out to everybody. How have you scheduled downtime for the weekend? Tomorrow is Friday. When is your downtime scheduled? And that doesn't mean, like running around. It's like, when is, in your case, when is Jess time? Right? So, all right, we do have one question that we got during registration, and I think it's a great one. So, what areas of self-care do you struggle with? So, I'm going to switch it up. We're going to go in reverse order. So, we're going to start with Jane.
Okay, easy. I can answer very easily.
All
I
right.
actually literally just recorded a podcast episode about this. I struggle with rest. I still struggle with rest. This is absolutely a work in progress. I am so much better than I used to be. And I plan rest. There are so many ways that I put it on the calendar. I leave little notes to myself. As I mentioned, I travel a lot. I train, I race, the various things I will put on my calendar for the day after I get back. I now no longer schedule anything on that day, and I will put just hours in there, kind of like rest and, grace. Like I will give myself little notes and little breadcrumbs, but even still, it's like, oh, but I could do this thing or whatever. And so that for me is for sure the area I am still a work in progress.
Fair enough. All right, Jess, how about you?
So I've got to echo Jane a little bit, and I think this is a global issue, rest. And I also, I schedule it and I put it on my calendar as well, and mine's around my cycle. So it's usually day 21 is to get that alone time, and make that day for myself. And then around day 27, 28, I mean, it's just on the calendar for the whole family, and it just says, rest. Jess, rest, and then when I do that, even today, to get out to the woods, it's like my brain is saying, so the struggle for me is when I'm getting to that place, it's these shoulds. So I call it the shoulds, and it's like I should be, meal planning instead for my family because we have nothing in the fridge. I should be cleaning. I should be packing for this trip. I should. And they really get in the way of real rest. So what I do now, especially when it comes right around the cycle where I'm about to start, and those shoulds creep in and tell me, no, you can't rest because you should something else, then I just write it down as a list. It's like, okay, fine. I hear you. I hear the shoulds. I'm going to write them down. If I get to them later, great. Like, and a lot of times later comes around, I look at that list and I'm like, that was just stuff this inner critic was making up anyway. Like, this isn't even a real list, So it's a tricky thing. Yeah, it's a struggle. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. What about you, Christina?
So I am a recovering people pleaser, and I still struggle sometimes with putting my own needs first. And my first instinct is to always say yes to other people when they ask me to do something for them. And so that's something I'm actually working on with my therapist, is saying no more and not feeling like I need a reason or an excuse to justify to the person why I'm not doing that, can't do this thing for them. And I'm always terrified, like, oh my gosh, they're going to be upset with me, or something like that. And that's usually not the case at all. Like, they totally understand if I say no, but that's definitely something I struggle with, wanting to take care of everyone else. And I sometimes don't put myself first. So
No is a complete sentence. All right, Shelby, bring us home.
Yep. Well, one of the things that I do is I am extremely self-critical. So having that inner monologue telling me I'm not doing enough, I'm not doing it fast enough, I'm not smart enough, but I don't stop to recognize my achievements. And this has been a huge achievement to put together this panel tonight. And I need to stop and say, look at what you created, registration and marketing and materials. And I gathered these wonderful, wonderful people together for this event and got it out to the people that could benefit from it. I will stop. And normally my tendency would be just to, what's the next thing on my list? But I will stop because it is an area of weakness for me to recognize the things that I accomplished during the day. At the end of the day, I always look and go, well, what didn't I accomplish? And that's going to create a negative mindset. So I've learned to reframe that and think about all the things that I did get done that day and to reflect on that and be proud of that as instead of just focusing on the negative.
Yeah, I mean, this is a lot of work. And also, it takes a lot to put yourself out there. When, you're putting out there and you're trying to market an event, anyone who's done this can totally empathize with the vulnerability associated with this. So one of my friends calls it a vulnerability hangover, right? Where, you just put yourself out. And so we have a text thread where if someone has like put themselves out there really bad, it's like, all right, I'm in a vulnerability hangover right now. And so, maybe that's what you're going to be experiencing. And, that's okay. It means that you're living. And, Diane's been chiming in on the chat and, she's 100% right. You're getting out of your comfort zone. So, so anyway, I want to thank everyone for tuning in live and the people who are listening to the recording. I want to thank our panelists. I want to thank John for his production work. And I want to thank Diane for moderating the chat. And obviously, we're going to wrap up with thanking Shelby for putting all this together. It's not easy. And it's a lot of work. So appreciate everyone's time and hope everyone has a wonderful evening.